As a beginning musician, it's hard to know what the music industry is like, what skills are the most valuable in gaining success, and what perspectives are shaped by the different choices we make. Through this exploration, I took to meeting with and interviewing two musicians, both highly successful and established in their different careers, in order to hear their own unique perspectives on their journeys and what being a successful musician is like. In understanding and comprehending the perspectives and career journeys of two successful and established musicians, albeit in different careers within the music industry, an understanding can be gained of the processes, choices, events, and skills which culminate in successful careers as musicians, and how their opposing career choices influence their perspectives on the music industry and themselves. This is demonstrated through the two participants' contrasting responses to the same interview questions, which will be compared in order to gain understanding of their differing attitudes. Jane Islob is a classroom music teacher currently working at Brisbane State High School, where she teaches both music and music extension, runs multiple choirs, and organises a range of extracurricular activities for her students. Growing up in rural Wondai, she attended boarding school, which was the only way for her to take music lessons. From there, she described becoming very passionate about music, playing trumpet and choosing to pursue a Bachelor of Music at UQ.
There was no discussion about what I was going to do. It was always going to be a Bachelor of Music.
Jane's beginnings in teaching began with private tuition during university, and after graduating she attained a Diploma of Education and worked in multiple schools in both Brisbane and Kingaroy, until eventually becoming employed at her current school. Lisa Cheney is a Queensland accolade-winning composer and educator who has been highly successful during her career, having amassed a large body of work of numerous commissions and extensive research on her way to becoming an established composer. Lisa's passion as a musician began as a teenager when Nicole Murphy, an established composer, was a guest composer at her high school.
That was the first time I remember the light bulb going off. For me, I was looking at someone, she was young, she was female, she was apparently a composer, and I was like, oh, okay, let's do that.
She then applied to study Bachelor of Music in Composition at the Queensland Conservatorium, then worked in administrative work at the Con for a short period. She then undertook a Master of Music, choosing to research the experiences of female career composers in Australia, and afterwards beginning a PhD at the University of Melbourne over the course of 7 years. In the meantime, she took commissions and, where possible, used them as part of the PhD body of work, attaining her doctorate in 2023. Jane's career mostly fits as a linear career within the development theory of careers presented by Super and Jordan. Following her initial foray into study as a teacher during her dip ed, that became her primary career focus, passing through the transition and trial stages through education and various teaching jobs until eventually becoming a mastered classroom music teacher with significant experience. However, this focus only came about during university after a sudden and unpredictable event.
I'm a trumpet player, and I had an accident in, third year uni, and I knocked out one of my front teeth. I tried to play with less pressure, all that sort of thing, but it was causing me problems. But at the same time, it just kind of made me reflect, because I think I sometimes just go with the flow on things. And I had actually really enjoyed teaching and private teaching, and then when I did my dip ed and I did my prac, it was just like coming home.
Jane's response demonstrates an understanding of the chaos theory of careers, as this singular momentary event represented an extremely large and lifelong diversion in her career journey, which otherwise might not have occurred. Her career is also somewhat boomerang-esque. Her employment and involvement in many areas across the state opened her to a wide range of opportunities and musical connections, which she continually draws on. Lisa's career fits much more strongly into that of a portfolio career, defined as that of someone who works multiple jobs and potentially job types across different areas, something she embraced herself in her answer.
Thinking about the many streams of your talents, how they cross over, and how it can cross over into forms of paid work that feel meaningful.
This is described in Ruth Bridgestock's 6 career capabilities within the skills of social networking capability, enterprising operations, and passion stance, all of which are also firmly present in Jane's career. Throughout her career, Lisa has continually sought mentorship and learning opportunities in the form of her master's and subsequent doctorate, which has resulted in her being a more capable and successful musician.
Good question. I'm a sucker for learning, I've got to say, particularly in tertiary environments. It is the people that you get connected to. It is your peers that are really special, and those peers, it's not a cliche, those peers do become your colleagues. as you go through your career.
In Diana Tolmy's research as to musicians' career outcomes compared to their initial intentions, it was found that there were nearly twice as many musicians who ended up as teachers than who initially set that as their goal, by far the largest shift between categories of occupation. Conversely, around 5% less musicians ended up as performers than they thought they would.
It's hard work, and it doesn't always work. The reality is that I do more teaching than I do composing.
Both Jane and Lisa's career pathways conform to this understanding of development, both beginning not necessarily intent on becoming music teachers. Teaching only became a priority for Jane after her tooth forced her to reflect on what she gained the most satisfaction from, which for her was teaching. For Lisa, teaching simply became a necessity for her to support her composition. When asked about how they sustained their careers financially and artistically, the focus in their answers differed greatly. Lisa focused mostly on the methods of how she financially managed herself and sought a balance in her work, while Jane spoke entirely about the artistic pursuits she has outside of teaching. This presented an interesting dichotomy, where Jane, a permanent teacher employed at a state school, seemed not to feel the need to go into detail about managing her income, while Lisa discussed the ways in which she, having completed her doctorate, balances her financial necessities of continual employment achieved through lecturing at JMC and teaching piano and composition at UQ, with her underlying drive to compose. When it came to describing the highs and lows of their careers, Jane and Lisa's answers were similarly different. Both took to describing the significance and strengths of their highs. For Jane, this was the benefits and growth she gives and sees in her students, a constant flow of satisfaction which accumulates over years.
Like, have that kid achieve success, and that's like the best thing in the world.
While Lisa described highs more toward being individual moments or periods of time. This contrast in their responses reflects the stresses and mental challenges experienced by creatives, as defined by Siddons, Daniel and Johnstone, particularly those of employment precarity and the gatekeeping of success behind external validators. These factors clearly influenced the thinking of Lisa in a composing career more so compared to Jane. And as a result, Lisa's perception of highs and lows, not to mention the highs and lows themselves, are much more specific and momentarily monumental, in comparison to Jane, whose highs and lows were more akin to pros and cons of her entire career. It is easy to see how the differing perspectives of these two musicians can come about from the perceived value of music from the general public, especially given that musicians perceived the general public's respect of portfolio careers to be substantially less than their own. When asked about how she shows the value of music in her career, Jane said,
Immeasurable, right? It's a language. The more fabulous musicians that I can assist, then the better they are at spreading the love of music.
This implicitly suggests Jane's referral to the ANA's social benefits of music, where fostering student participation and love of music in a communal school environment can have the effects of building community feeling, enhancing empathy, combating loneliness, and increasing civic participation, all of which heightens the livability of the city, bound by secondary schools as social anchors. Lisa responded by discussing the role of music as mirroring society, growing out of the current cultural mindset.
So even whether you're consciously aware of it, everything that we create is a reflection of the time in which we exist.
From this, we can see how Lisa thinks of music as that it not just should be, but already is ingrained in Australia's national and cultural identity, even without the recognition of such a thing. She later returned to this idea of music as an ideological carrier in her advice for a composition student.
Really do an internal audit each piece to find out what the core value or core spark, your guiding principle of your art is. So is it about a message, or is it about a feeling? Is it about a sound?
Both Jane and Lisa argued in favour of a protein approach in giving their advice, which is what they have themselves done and resulted in their both having highly successful careers. Through embracing Ruth Bridgestock's 6 career capabilities for success and embarking on very different, yet in many ways analogous career pathways, they both have achieved highly rewarding career journeys.
Money. Sometimes you got to pay for them, and sometimes they take up heaps of time, and you feel so time poor and so stressed and got clashes left, right and centre, but you just kind of power through because the end result is amazing. So there's very rarely ever been an event or an activity that I regret being involved in.